Hello, hello, hello. That's a sign that we want to get started. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's program. I'm Jim Van Epps, the president of the Savannah Council. It's my great honor for these 2.5 years to do this. And our program this evening will be presented by Professor, coming to the front here, Patricio Dellagiovanna, who will be more fully introduced in a couple minutes by my fellow director, Jerry Thomas. Professor Dellagiovanna will speak on Argentina politics and the direct influence of world powers in South America. As you're familiar with, because they are a continuing platinum sponsor for us, and they've done this for a number of years, it's Kreitz. And Kreitz, they provided automotive excellence in Savannah and across the coastal empire for over 80 years. We're very grateful to Kreitz for continuing as a sponsor of the Savannah Council. Next, I'd ask that you please note the date of our next program. It's on a Wednesday, not a Thursday. It will be May 22nd. And again, it's only for that speaker, but to get somebody of Ambassador Volker's caliber, we were willing to make an adjustment, and we hoped you would too. So at this point, though, I'd like to introduce, Ambassador Larry Silverman, who's going to talk about the rest of the program as we see it for right now. Larry.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks very much. Welcome, everyone, and I think you'll enjoy Ambassador Volker's talk. There will be a large component of that because a lot of you expressed an interest when we did a survey earlier about NATO and U.S.-NATO relations and NATO's role in the world. So he's our former ambassador to NATO, and he'll be talking about that, but the much bigger picture of U.S., Russia, China, and then what is NATO's role. I just wanted to mention that we're really trying to give you a wide variety of speakers on issues that are happening now, developments, not just at the moment, but developments that will affect U.S. foreign policy and the U.S. role in the world for many years to come. I'm happy to say that when we reconvene after May, of course, we take a break for a few months, and then in September, we're going to be joined by Dr. Kori Schake of the American Enterprise Institute. Some of you may know her, former National Security Council, former Defense Department, former State Department official, and she's been at AEI in Washington, the think tank, for quite a while. And in October, because I know a lot of you have expressed interest in China and U.S.-China relations, we'll have Dr. Patricia Kim from the Brookings Institution in Washington. She's a fellow on Asia policy and their China Center within Brookings. And I'm very happy to say we have to juggle the dates a little bit, but we got commitments to speak here from Ambassador Tom Shannon. And Tom Shannon used to be, actually he was once Secretary of State, acting. He was the number 3 in the Secretary of State at the U.S. Department of State, our former ambassador to Brazil, and a real expert on Latin America because we really haven't covered it. Now we're happy to have South America and the important case of Argentina, which Patricio will enlighten us on later. And also in the realm of the cutting edge, Kat Duffy has agreed to speak. She's a fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations, and she will talk to us about artificial intelligence and international affairs and how do you govern artificial intelligence, artificial intelligence. It's a fascinating area, and Kat is really one of the leaders back in Washington talking about that. A friend of mine, I was in Washington a couple of weeks ago, and a friend of mine has agreed. He's our former acting ambassador to the UK and Assistant Secretary of State for European Affairs, Phil Rieker, has also agreed to speak to us. So we have a lineup coming for the fall and into next year that I think you'll find very interesting. Thank you.
Thanks. Larry's my successor as the chair of the Programs Committee, and I will say that I certainly recognize a step up in the quality of speakers that we've had. He has just done a superb job, and we all thank him for that. So we talked about the date going to the 22nd of May, not the 23rd, not Thursday, it's a Wednesday. And speaking of change, one more important announcement. And in the recent program meetings, I mentioned that the board has decided to relocate our venue for programs to the Coastal Georgia Center downtown on Farm Street. After much debate and consideration, the decision is made that the move will be made in November. That'll be our first program downtown. And from then on is what our plan is. Now, there might be programs that we have to have back here for whatever reason. We also hope to continue having our international trivia dinner and event here. It was a lot of fun. But to talk more authoritatively, because Justin has been the former president, been a longtime member and director, I'd like to ask our Vice President, Justin Godchaux, to come and speak to you for a minute or two, who will provide a little bit more background as to why we're doing this. Justin.
We really enjoyed being on Skidaway Island, and wish to thank the community church for being our host. Why did we move from downtown? We're the Savannah Council on World Affairs, and for years and years, we're an all-volunteer organization. We have no paid staff, and we've been around coming up on 40 years now. And we're really proud to be one of the smaller councils in the country, but we one of the most successful all-volunteer councils. And for years and years, we were on Farm Street, and Farm Street for a number of years was actually managed by Savannah State, and we were down there, and we were paying for the 2 hours or so it takes to have this program on third Thursday nights of most months between September and May each year. We would pay like $100, and so then Georgia Southern took over the University System of Georgia, switched it to Georgia Southern. They decided we're going to make it a profit center. And instead of $100, they wanted $500 for 2 hours, and we simply couldn't afford it. Especially since one of our main goals is to have the student study abroad program and support student stipends for students at Savannah State and Georgia Southern, and previously Armstrong, study abroad, and now the Georgia Southern and Savannah State. And that seemed to be more important to us than spending a lot of money on a venue. Again, Skidaway has been wonderful to us, but when we look at our figures, we really haven't had a lot of growth over the last few years. We have a wonderful core that comes to each one of our meetings out here, and it's but we're the Savannah Council World Affairs. We're going to go back to Savannah, and the city of Savannah now manages the building at Farm Street, and they're charging us nothing. All right, so thank you, the city of Savannah. Okay, yay for the city of Savannah. And for those 2 hours, we are going to go to, because it's in the evenings and we have programs when it starts to get dark early, we are going to have security. And by the way, that area of downtown Savannah is one of the most secure. One is you have the SCAD dorms there, you have the visitor center. It's totally cambered, and it has plenty of parking, and it's very, very secure area of downtown. So you can go down there without worrying about your safety and park and come to our programs beginning in November of next year. Anyway, thank you very much, and we've made this decision, and we're going to be the Savannah Council World Affairs and hope to get growth from where Savannah's growing, which is west, and out towards the new car plant and out towards JCB and Gulfstream, and get some more of those people involved in, as well as some of the people from Bluffton and South Carolina, which we lost when we moved out here. Thank you very much.
Not an easy discussion, as I said. There was a lot of debate among us. We know that we just hope you'll stick with us. That's what we're saying. Well, let me get to it. And now with Jerry Thomas, if you'll come forward and introduce our speaker, please. Thanks, Jerry.
So first, I'm going to move this there. Okay. So welcome everybody tonight. Tonight's speaker is an Argentinian that lives in Buenos Aires, and you might be wondering, well, how did we get somebody living in Buenos Aires to come speak? Well, I'm a Rotarian, a member of the Rotary Club of Savannah South, and one of the Rotary International's programs is called Friendship Exchange. And back in the fall, myself and 4 other Rotarians from Georgia made a visit for 10 days in Argentina for the purpose of just understanding better the culture and the people, the politics, and anything else about Argentina. Well, it's an exchange. So also Argentinians come to Georgia for the same purpose, to learn about us. And so just by coincidence, the Argentinians were planning to be in Savannah this week, which coincided with the scheduled meeting. And so the board decided that, okay, we have someone with the credentials to speak about Argentina, and so that's how it transpires. And Rotary is an international organization. There's clubs in 180 out of 195 countries in the world, and we're all connected to do good things around the world. So, with that, Patricio Dellagiovanna, he's a professor of Pontifical Catholic University of Argentina in International Relations. He's also the coordinator of the Center for International Studies at the university. He has a master's degree in international relations from the University of Bologna, among other degrees. And in 2021 and 2022, he spent a year at Yale University as a visiting assistant in research. And he also does various consulting and advisory positions in agriculture, trade, and international relations, and participates in trade negotiation as for the government of Argentina with other South American countries. So with that, let's welcome Patricio.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me here. I'm going to put my chronometer in order to have the precise time because I really want to discuss different topics with you after my presentation. So there we are. Before we start, I would really like to thank Jerry Thomas, George Peak from Rotary International, and of course, Ambassador Silberman and Jim, the chair of this council, for having me here. It's very nice to get to see you all and to share my experience and some different tips about Argentina. So, today we are going to talk about Argentina, its economy, and also we are going to talk about the world power's influence in Argentina and the Southern Cone. So, where is Argentina? Argentina is located in the southernmost part of Latin America. It's a bi-oceanic country. That's to say, we have our shores on the Atlantic and the Pacific. It has a population of 46 million people, and it's the 8th biggest country in the world with a total area, and that's a big number that I'm not going to say, but we are located very close to Antarctica, and it's just 4,000 miles, almost 5,000 miles away from Savannah, Georgia. So we came a very long way to be here. So there you can get to see the stars where Savannah is located and where Argentina is located. And, well, let's talk about Argentina. So this is a democracy index that the United States get to perform on different think tanks get to do. And Argentina is a democracy, but it's not a full, what we call a full democracy, okay? So it is well ranked, but still it's a little bit flawed, okay? So it means that Argentina needs to keep on working on the institutional level to get, a better democratic system. So here is this democracy index that shows how countries are rated, okay? So you can get to see that, for instance, Russia is in very red, China as well, and, for instance, Canada is doing great, even like the Scandinavian countries are doing well, and Argentina is doing quite decent, but needs to work up from flawed democracies. And also, I made these tiny charters to show you this, that Argentina is located above the average you find in the world, okay? So it means that out of the big amount of countries that you can find in the world, well, it's doing above the average, which is, particularly good, but it should be looking after getting closer to Europe or even the United States. So, in general, Argentina is well positioned among democracies. However, it is not 100% efficient, and we will get to talk later about how efficiency in democracy works. Mainly for a federal country like Argentina, like the United States, we have big provinces, and governors are very important. And due to some aspects, like corruption, lack of transparency, and low accountability by the institutions, then it's considered a flawed democracy. It is not as close, to Finland or Denmark or Sweden, but it's far away from Russia and China. So this is something we're not doing at all good, okay? Argentina is a very closed economy. So the Atlantic Council gets to do this Economic Freedom Index. It's very good because they make this analysis where democracies are good, where the economy is open, democracies thrive. And this has been a problem for Argentina in the last, 5 or 6 decades. Our economy is very closed. So the darker the color gets in the map, and Argentina is, let me see if the pointer works here, but Argentina would be close to Brazil. The darker it gets, the less free the economy is. So Argentina is not doing well in this index and hasn't been doing well for the last 30 years. So this is how it started. So we are taking the 1996 series. Argentina is the blue one, and you can see how free our economy was. And actually, we were close to the United States. And it started going down and down. And right now, we are close. For instance, the red line is Russia, and the other one is China. So that's a big problem for us. Okay? So since 1996 till last year, this is the way I prepared the chart you're getting to see, our economy has been getting smaller and smaller and smaller and less free. And this is the way it's going, There you are. The blue line went down a lot. It tried to correct a little bit, but still, we're a very closed economy, and there you are. You can find us just next to Russia and China. And so the other lines, for instance, are Ireland, which has been doing a great job, actually, and the United States. So what can we say about this? It is a closed economy. We have almost none or nearly non-existent free trade agreements. According to this index, Argentina is mostly unfree. What does it mean? It's almost repressed. It's a repressed economy. We have gone way worse in the last 30 years from being very close to the USA Freedom Index to China's and Russia's. And, big economic and leading economies in the world in terms of economic freedom, such as Singapore, Switzerland, Ireland, and Taiwan, should be our main aim, not China or Russia, right? On the other hand, we're doing great in the World Press Freedom Index. In Argentina, there is free speech. You have freedom of speech, and actually the press is considered to be quite independent. Of course, it's not perfect, but you can get to see that it is in yellow, and that means it is a satisfactory situation, okay? So you can go up to a park and, start a demonstration. Nothing would happen, okay? And journalists get to do their job very well. So Argentina is positioned 40th out of 180, which is pretty decent. The USA are 45th. This is not to make it someone is better than the other, but we are very close to the United States, right? So, which is good. But we need to go on working with this. For instance, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Finland come top 5. North Korea, 180th, of course. So this means we should do improvements and do better, but we could definitely do much worse. So has anybody seen this person? Maybe yes. Okay, I'm just a speaker. I'm not clapping, right? So this is our new president. This is Javier Milei. So he's an economist and a professor, right? He worked for a long time in the private sector, Corporación América, which runs the great majority of airports in Argentina, 100% private companies. And they also run some other airports around the world. So he defines himself as a libertarian, and ideologically, he's closer, and I would like to make a strong point here. He's closer to Ron Paul, than to Reagan or Thatcher, okay? So he's kind of considered, he follows the Austrian economic school. Some call it the anarcho-capitalist school, okay? He strongly defends free markets, a small government, and deficit zero policies. I think that this is important to mention. He had never been in office before. He just had run for Congress until 2020. He was in the private sector, so he decided to run for Congress. He won a seat there, and 2 years later, he's the president of Argentina. So it's interesting to see how little experience he has in government. However, he has a big experience in international trade and negotiations. So he became president of Argentina, winning the elections in November 2023. That's a few months ago. So what are Milei's economic objectives? This is very important. So Milei's main aims are to have an open economy, to dollarize the economy, to bring deficit down to zero, realign Argentina with its historic Western allies. Argentina has been since the 1990s a non-NATO major ally. However, we have been pulling away from that and getting closer to Russia, unfortunately, to say this, Iran as well. So he wants to sign free trade agreements and to cut inflation to a single digit, because we've been having more than 300% inflation per year for the last 2 or 3 years. So let's talk about the powers. Well, China has a great presence in Latin America, and Argentina is not going to be the exception. They are investing in ports, airports, mining companies, everywhere. You know, they have a lot of investments with strategic positions they are taking, for instance, in Patagonia, that is close to Antarctica. Chinese projects have a very big problem. They are not eco-friendly at all. So a lot of the countries are actually reacting against some of the Chinese projects because of the damage they are causing to the environment. Argentina is also not the exception here.
Is the exception or is not?
It is not the exception. It is not. For instance, we have some things for your question. We have some mining projects that have been very harmful for some regions in the country. This is a chart made by the economist from the United Kingdom. So you can get to see all the projects they have. And in Argentina, they are also involved in nuclear energy. Okay, that's the picture where it says Argentina there. Okay, it would be there, where they are investing in the third nuclear station. Well, actually, the Secretary of State, Blinken, has called out this, and the United States are very preoccupied about Chinese investing in nuclear energy in Argentina. But this is something we should all pay attention to, the lithium triangle. So lithium is used for this, batteries for our phones. Argentina has the biggest lithium reserve in the world. So Argentina produced last year about 6% of the lithium world's output. That's very big. And that area is located between Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile. Okay, it's a strategic place where Russia, China, and even the United States and Germany are investing a lot of money. So what about Russia? Well, we've had very difficult years with Russia in Latin America. So you can get to see that Argentina, this is an economic tie of Russia with Latin America. So they have a lot of investments in Brazil, Ecuador, but they also have a lot of investments in Argentina. Most of those investments are not only in the mining industry, but also they are selling weapons, arms, to these countries. Then you can get to see so they got to increase a lot of arms they are selling to the region, but actually China is selling a lot more weapons than Russia to Brazil and Argentina. So on the left, you get to see where Russia is sending money, Cuba, and Venezuela. And then you have China sending a lot of money for arms to Brazil and then to Argentina. But this was very important. During the COVID pandemics, Russia played a very important role with their vaccines. And actually, they almost had the entire Argentine market. This was called the vaccines diplomacy. You remember there was this Sputnik vaccine. You also had other vaccines from, for instance, the United States, let's say Pfizer. Well, Argentina, for a few months, couldn't get the Pfizer one because the previous government had signed an agreement to Russia to give them the monopoly of the vaccines in Argentina. That's to say, we put the Argentinians' health in the hands of the Russians. So, public opinion, actually, this chart, perhaps you will not get to see it, but the first column is about Argentina. And public opinion, on the left, you can see that Argentina, in blue, they have a very good opinion of Russia, actually. A lot of people are in favor of them. And if you see the United States here, then you have like Russia is 49% on the left, and you have on the United States, the opinion is 43% in favor. That is to say that till last year, people were more, the public opinion in Argentina was more in favor of Russia due to this vaccines diplomacy than the United States. So let's talk about Milei's foreign policy. Well, he definitely wants to realign Argentina with the Western Hemisphere, mainly with the United States, the NATO, and Europe, the European Union. So this is a friend of mine for an important newspaper. So Cecilia wrote this article. So she's saying here that we are pulling away from the BRICS, and we are getting closer to the United States, and we would really like to have talks with the United Kingdom about the Malvinas or the Falkland Islands as you get to know them. In addition to that, we have a realignment with Israel, the second biggest Jewish community outside Israel, apart from the United States, is Argentina. It's located in Argentina. We even had a big terrorist attack in Argentina during the 90s. So that was the first attack that took place in the entire American soil after the Twin Towers attack, okay? So it was actually previous to the Twin Towers. And Argentina and China, you can see, is at its worst historical moment right now. In addition to that, we're getting to buy a lot of weapons right now from different countries of the NATO. They are NATO members. For instance, we bought 24 jet planes from Denmark with U.S. authorization and 4 more from Norway. So here you can get to see the deal that was signed. $300 million for those 24 F-16 jets. And we got the visit of a very important person, General Richardson. She's the commander of the Southern Cone here in Washington, D.C., and she visited Argentina like 3 times since Milei got back in office. So what's the political panorama for this last 10 minutes before we go to questions? So Milei has very small support in Congress, okay? He has 38 congressmen, 38 seats in the House of Representatives out of 257. He only has 8 senators out of 72. He has no appointed member in the Supreme Court. He has no governors that respond to his party. So how is he going to get, the goods delivered? Well, there is a big question here. The thing is that he has a strong approval rate. People support him a lot. They still support him, And he has a strong approval rate. It's more than 50% of citizens. If you go, walk in the streets, they would tell you that they support him, even though he has been carrying out these big tax reforms, not only tax reforms, pensions reforms, dollarization, and this big cut on inflation. This has affected, it has made prices go up. And right now, for instance, I was telling the current chair of the Council of World Affairs here that goods are more expensive in Buenos Aires than in Madrid or Germany, okay? So here you got to see this lovely rabbit from Alice in Wonderland. Why is this? Well, we were discussing today with Ambassador Silverman. We really Actually, I really think that Milei and right now the policies that are being carried out in Argentina are an experiment that the world is paying attention to, because he is probably taking us from 300% of inflation to deflation in May, June, or July. So the people are really paying a lot of attention. But this rabbit of Alice in Wonderland is always in a hurry, because he's never going to make it for tea. What I'm trying to say here is this: will the people be able to endure these very hard and tough policies enough time to get our economy recovered or not? Will he be able to perform his duty and task before people run out of patience? So, conclusions. First of all, we are seeing a realignment with the Western powers. We are seeing a de-alignment with China, Russia, and, of course, Iran after the two terrorist attacks we had in Argentina. We are getting to see a rearmament of the entire southern cone, not only Argentina, also Brazil, Uruguay, Paraguay, Bolivia, which is Irani supplied. So we are getting to see an economic liberalization. We are going to a zero fiscal deficit policy. We are not sure that he will be able to dollarize the economy in the near future, not before midterm elections that are going to be held next year, not before that. There is a big increase in poverty due to this recession to cut inflation. It's a big recession. You're getting to see a lot of jobs losses this month. There will probably be social and political instability, mainly with the unions that are very strong in Argentina, very strong. And but at the same time, we have very big economic opportunities. We have oil, gas, food, and also we have lithium. So the big question here is, will the economy recover quickly enough to prevent a social and political collapse? That's what everybody's wondering, and I'm not sure I have the answer here. Questions? Thank you very much. Sir.
Touch very quickly, what's the president's relationship with academia?
Well, that's a great question. You know, yeah, sorry, Ambassador.
Just raise your hand if you don't hear a question. You don't have the mic. I'll repeat the question, but I think we all heard it.
Did you all hear the question? So he has been asking about the relation between Milei and the academia. That's a very good question. He's a professor, first of all, but at the same time, he has decided to modify some of the policies related to the public and free university we have in Argentina. This has been a policy for more than the last 100 years in Argentina, to get free education in public universities. I have a colleague sitting here who went to actually it's #1 university in the country and among 100 in the world, University of Buenos Aires, which has given us even Nobel Prizes. So what I'm trying to say is this is a continuous policy of Argentina. We've been having that for more than 100 years. And he's trying to audit them. Actually, there is a problem. The executive power doesn't get to audit universities because they are autonomous and only the Congress can do that. So I'm going to ask you, after seeing this, has he got the votes to audit the universities in Congress? So some days ago, there was this huge demonstration with more than 250,000 people in the streets marching against some of the defunding policies to public universities. On the other side, the previous government created a lot of universities and didn't allocate the proper funding for them, not knowing if there were going to be students for those universities. So that was also fiscal and academic populism. So, I mean, we're there.
Right. What's life like with 300% inflation? Also, is the U.S. dollar used as kind of black market currency?
Well, it does. It does. And what's life? I feel as if I were 60 years old, and I am 33. So I've lived a second life. So what I'm trying to say is this. Actually, Argentina had inflation processes for the last almost 70 years. So I think that the structure of the economy is dollar-oriented, right? But sometimes, and it's like that, you get to have very good moments where you can even buy a house like in 5 years and pay it all, or sometimes you go bankrupt. So it's very stressing. I would say that it's mentally stressing, you know?
We have a question from our reader here.
You showed the map there where the infiltration of China. This is what bothers me. What can you say? I think that the previous government, Cristina, they saw a big plot in the Patagonia. And my understanding is, I don't know if it is right or not, they have a big tower where no one else can go in. So that's their property and it's in a very strategic place.
It's a great question, actually. Thank you very much. So,
What's the question?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I could reformulate. What's going on with the Chinese and a base they made in Patagonia? Military base, actually. Information analytics base. Okay? So the previous government allowed them to get that base in Patagonia. That was one of the main reasons General Richardson visited Argentina. They made an inspection there. So apparently they told the Chinese government that they were going to have that inspection. So we're not sure if they took everything away before they got there. But it was dissuasive and it was very efficient. Just not to collide with China, they helped us a lot.
Right here.
This inflation you have. Usually inflation is either neutral, like workers and businessmen, they all are inflating, or one sector or the other is a loser and the other sector is a winner. Is this 300% inflation, is it money going up to the business people at the top? Or is it business people's money going down to the working class?
That's a great question, sir, because actually there have been a lot of big companies benefiting from this for a long time. And workers are not getting the proper pay, and sometimes salaries go down by every week, you know? Depreciation goes on and on. So, yep, and that's something the president said he would like to correct, you know, to end that system that has benefited a lot of big companies that they also want the economy to be closed and not open to the rest of the world. That's like, you know, fishing at home, you know, with the fish you have as a pet. That's a big problem. Yeah, and that's what has been happening with big companies in Argentina.
I got another little spin on that, and that is, in Chile, they had a great experiment with Austrian economics. Was that, does he consider that as a successful experiment?
Well, we had the Chicago Boys in Argentina as well. You know, they came to assess us after assessing Pinochet, the dictator from Chile. In Chile, it turned out to be, it turned out well. It's the country that has more free trade agreements in the world, apart from Singapore and some other country. What I'm trying to say, it's a very open economy. It didn't work that well for us, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work, right? I think that Milei is really looking forward to Ireland. Do you all remember the crisis in Europe after the subprime crisis here? It went on to Europe. That was 2010, 2012, more or less. And there were these big countries: Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Greece, and Spain. So some of them carried out the reforms. Some of them didn't. Italy, for instance, didn't, and its economy is not growing, hasn't been growing for the last 10 years. Greece did. That didn't, they have a lot of instability in their parliament, but Portugal, Spain, and Ireland did. The one that did better was Ireland, and the president is always mentioning Ireland, the Irish case.
The question in the back, gentleman in the back.
How about NATO?
Well, right now, it's very important, the realignment with NATO. So the chancellor of Argentina, that would be the foreign affairs ministers, has been working a lot with NATO members, NATO state members, right? Also, there is a big cooperation. So those jets I was mentioning, the 24 jets we got from Denmark, it's the biggest investment in air power in the last 60 years. And that's, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's a major realignment with the NATO.
Could they become part of NATO?
I don't think so, because it's Northern Atlantic, sir. That's why we are non-NATO major allies. I don't get to see that the NATO is going to expand to South America.
There is something, they have been a major, what's called a major non-NATO ally. We have them in the Middle East even.
Exactly. In Kuwait as well.
Kuwait.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now the talk is of what they call a global partnership, or being a country can be a global partner of NATO, which is yet another category. By the way, for those of you who might be worried, it does not mean that we would be obliged to come to Argentina's defense like we would a NATO ally. That's only for the absolute allies. But what is this global? And do you think it's something that the Argentinian people would support at this point?
At this point, yes. I wouldn't have said the same some years ago. I'm not sure that even the Argentinians will go to war for specifically one country. Let's say, I don't know, if Latvia gets attacked, I'm not sure the Argentinians would go to war, but we would definitely support with other things. For instance, sending aid, food, and our Peace Corps and doctors. We always send them, the doctors, military doctors, to Cyprus even. Yeah.
Yes,
If Milei is to succeed in his program and restore the economy, what types of changes would we begin to see that progress is being made in that direction and is becoming successful?
Well, it's a great question. Well, we'll probably get to see more entrepreneurs and, these young people that go to work, like distance working. We'll get to see a lot of that. We'll get to see more shares from Argentina in the stock markets everywhere. And we'll get to see some improvement and the peso strengthening a lot. And in addition to that, you might get to see some free trade agreements signed. For instance, less than a month ago, we received at the Argentine Council on International Relations. I am a member there. We received a delegation from the European Free Trade Agreement. That's the opposite of the European Union. The British are pulling that, and we have a difficult relation with the British, and still. I think George Washington as well. So I'm sure we're going to get to see more of those free trade agreements and, an economy perhaps growing bigger, definitely.
The gentleman in the green, and then I'll come over here.
I read this morning where Milei's government has produced a $300+ million surplus. He's been in office how long?
3 months.
And he said that $300 million would return to the taxpayers and not go to public works / pork, as it is here.
That's correct.
So $300 million plus.
It's a lot for us.
We can't do it.
Well, it's very important to mention that. My question would be there, is that sustainable?
The second thing is money, the value of money. And Milton Friedman and Phil Donahue have a great YouTube video on inflation. Have you followed Milton Friedman?
Well, actually, Jerry shared it with me.
Okay.
I think
So watch Milton Friedman on Phil Donahue about inflation. In a few minutes, that smiling face will explain what it is and why you got the 300%.
Yeah. Well,
And you go into the real estate crisis, China's largest bank, Evergrande, real estate developer, largest in the world, just failed in the last year.
Question, you had a question?
Yes, so I don't have to tell you what an important year this is politically in this country. And you said, and I know this is true, that Milei has been trying to get closer, align himself not only with Europe, but with the US as well. And he's been here not long ago. I think maybe a couple of times. One of them came to the CPAC conference. So I don't know if how you can address that. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts about his approach to the alignment? Because after all, the conservatives are not in power right now here. So what do you think is key?
So I think that Argentina has nothing to do with Iran, China, or Russia culturally. We are a Catholic Western country, and we have been that for ages. So I think that's the right place to be. Even if in power you have Donald Trump or Joe Biden, that has nothing to do. It has to do with something cultural and with identity. Well, that's my opinion, you asked.
But he will not offer his opinion about our politics, you don't think, or you do that?
I'm not giving my opinion on your politics.
Yes.
Yeah, so the one story of inflation in Argentina is this prolific spending by the personers and others. The other story is that some of the roots go back to when a U.S. judge backed the position of the vulture funds, saying that the agreements that Argentine government had made with bondholders wouldn't be in place, so that judge began to impound, I think, Argentine naval vessels and other stuff like this. So forcing them, I guess Argentines to cough off the money, start paying these bondholders. And then after that, we have Macri gets $52 billion from the IMF, which supposedly was pushed by the White House at the time. So this is the U.S. influence in Argentina, and Argentina's political economy, which I guess, at least one story is that based on some of those conditions, such as capital flight, I think some low growth, you end up getting into an inflation depreciation spiral. So bondholders start taking money out, start having capital flight, which then decrease the value of the currency, increasing inflation, which again increases the goods and gets into this sort of spiral. And that would be the alternative story of why Argentina ended up getting all this type of
Mm-hmm. Well, it's part of the story, definitely. It's not like the other side of the story, I would say. It's part of it, actually. And the problem was that President Macri at that moment did a big mistake. which was to not have the capital control of capital movement. So all the money that came from the IMF to make all the reforms we had to do entered through one door and went out the other way. Milei hasn't opened the free market for capital movement yet. We've got to see.
May I just ask, has he come up with kind of a package plan to bring in foreign investors as well, a different approach on foreign investment, which is taxation and everything?
Well, he has come. There was this called Big Boss Law. It was called like that because, everything was in there. Okay. That law died in Congress the first month. Okay. Because the key to the situation in Congress, and thanks for asking, has to do with the governors. I told you we are a federal, country, so governors have a lot of power in Congress through their senators and representatives. So he didn't get the idea that he had to negotiate with governors. So that's very important. He's trying to pass the same bill with some reforms next month. Right now, the committees in Congress are working very hard. I've talked to some friends that are working a lot. But the thing is that behind the scenes, the government, the entire executive, is negotiating with the governors for their senators' vote in Congress.
Yes.
So, could you give some comments on corruption, what types there are, and what can be done or is being done to minimize it?
Well, corruption types in Latin America, Jerry, we could be here all day. But one of the main problems in Argentina had to do with, public construction, public allocation, public contracts that the government would give to some private hands, and they would make some money returns. Okay? So I would give you, let's say, the contract for building a big highway, and then you would put a higher price. You would get that construction, we call them licitación, okay? And then you would send me some money back. That happened a lot in Argentinian history. So that was very typical corruption, using the government's funds. So, your question is, what is Milei doing with that? Well, he has decided not to have public funds for building any type of highway, airport, not anymore. He said private people are going to build them. So that's actually a big punch to those corruption loops.
Question.
Yes, in August of 2023, Argentina went to China to rely on. In August 2023, Argentina relied on the People's Bank of China for its currency while buying in a bridge loan to avert a default in the IMF loans. After Milei was elected in December 2023, they suspended that line. Excluding the most recent government surplus, where is Argentina going to find the financing to repay these IMF loans?
Well, it's a very good question. I mean, the president is saying that Argentinians, have a lot of savings in dollars. We are the country with more dollars outside the United States. So he believes that his policies are going to bring those that money that is out of the system into the system, and that's the way we are getting to get all the dollars, apart from foreign investment. I'm not that sure, to be sincere.
And he does that, by promising not to be taxed, or how does he
Well, exactly. He's trying to, make some tax cut, but at the same time to keep this deficit zero policy, he has risen other taxes. So we're not sure that we are having foreign investment tax cuts for them. Not that promising, actually.
That ability to attract new investment depends a great deal on the success of his program, and ultimately then upon the confidence of investors from the outside that he has the political support within Argentina to be able to continue.
That's correct. Let's say if I were an investor from the United States and I have my pension funds here and they tell me, would you like to buy some American stocks? Argentinian stocks or shares. I would say, let's see if everything works and let's see if he's going to win the midterm elections. If those two things go right, they might be, international investment will get to the country.
In the case of Lebanon, for example, which has had an economic disaster, they had money coming still from the diaspora, from many Lebanese all around the world. Why? Because they offered a very high interest rate. But like you said, that only goes as long as that's a credible high interest rate and people have confidence that they'll get paid, get paid back. So the first few months of that, it has to work.
Exactly.
Those bonds better be paid at a higher level and be reliably paid at a higher.
Exactly. And at the same time, what he has done to cut inflation is to half the amount, the interest rate. So it was over 124, and right now it's 68%. Yeah.
Other questions? Yes.
One of Argentina's largest exports is soybeans.
Yeah. To China.
Right.
Yeah.
And same in the U.S. Why would Argentina want to draw closer ties towards essentially a major competitor in this export market?
It's a great question. I work a lot on the agri-food sector. So actually, we could get a lot of investment for instance, precision agriculture, which is very important to develop. And actually, we need to industrialize it at home instead of only exporting seeds, technology, and water. There is water in the seeds. We are exporting very good water. We should process it at home. We've been discussing actually this at the Abraham College of Agriculture here in Georgia some days ago. It's very important to develop an internal market as well for the agri-food production. We still need to work a lot on that.
Yes.
You were talking about how much all the countries in South America are investing in defense and war and military. From the American point of view, it doesn't seem like South America is a hotbed of international conflict. So do we just not understand how bad it is? Or is there some other reason that people are investing so much in military equipment? Raw material?
Well, it's not that. I would never say that someone doesn't understand. So I think that there is some untold story about China in Latin America. I mean, sometimes you get to see a lot of companies that have perhaps an American or an Argentinian as a chair, but behind that there is a lot of Chinese people from the Communist Party. Have you ever seen that? I've been telling my colleagues, have you ever seen that mamushka from Russia? You open one and then you get the rest, the little ones. Well, that's how Chinese companies work here, not only in the United States, but also in Latin America. So they're buying ports, they're buying nuclear stations, they're investing in airports, they're investing a lot. In January, I was invited by the International Republican Institute to Panama. I got to talk to a lot of Panamanians. They were very concerned about the Chinese investing in the Panama Canal. So actually that is a pretty important geostrategically position. There are only two ways to get to the Pacific, right? The Panama Canal, Tierra del Fuego, Argentina. Because the Arctic is frozen. It's beginning to defrost. Let's not talk about that here. Okay, but, you know, it's very important. Both positions, Panama and the southern part of Argentina. So maybe the Office of the Secretary of State and the Pentagon know something we don't know. I'm not sure about that. But I'm sure they are sharing that information to the colleagues from the Ministry of Defense. But it's very important to have weapons. Let's say we have 24 provinces there, right? Like 24 states. That would be just one jet per province. It's not that much.
I don't know Argentina at all, really. But, you know, there's always the prestige element, and you're building it, you know, there's a nationalist element, there's a prestige element, there's that a country, especially such a financially important country. By the way, when I remember 2000, 2001, the whole world was focused on two countries, Turkey and Argentina, just because of the financial issue, because they were a bellwether for whether the IMF could ever, countries could borrow from the IMF, whether the country could ever do what the IMF wanted to do. But a major country like Argentina is almost expected, you know, to have a decent sized military, regardless of what any imminent threat.
I totally agree. I mean, it's a big country. It has a lot of resources, and it needs to have like decent protection.
You mentioned before, I guess, Chicago Boys, monetarism, treatment. So Argentina has experimented with that. The last time was with Carlos Menem. They attempted a type of dollarization. So what does Milei say about that time period in terms of how does he understand the failures of this? It seems that
Well, Carlos Menem, the former president, is Milei's hero. Yep, really. He says it publicly. Last time, the thing with Carlos Menem, corruption was the worst in years. That didn't come out very well, actually. So a lot of people, mainly the press, are concerned about that, you know? In addition to that, it's important to say that he's trying to correct something that Carlos Menem didn't, and that's to have deficit zero policies at the subnational level, the provinces. Because the 2001 crisis, Ambassador, had to do mainly with the debt the provinces had with the nation. Okay?
So let me thank you, Professor, for a
Thank you very much.
terrific presentation. Well done. I'm going to say that you stick around for a little bit.
Okay, sure.
So our chat there was that Patricio will stick around for a few minutes, and thank you for a presentation on a country that we need to know something about with its resources and its size and its 46 billion people. So well done. Thank you very much. Remember next month, 22nd of May, right here. Thanks very much.